The Life in the Hereafter. What does the Quran say? Translation of Jahan Ifada by Jaz Rasul. Ghulam Ahmad, Parwez, 1969. 9. Reward and punishment for the deeds in this life. What has been discussed previously is summarized below so that matter becomes clear before us. 1. In the world, individuals live as part of a society, which means their standard of living is proportional to the standard of living within that society. If the society is prosperous, the people will also be prosperous. If the society is in hardship, then individuals will accordingly live a life of hardship. 2. Worldly gains are obtained by the subjugation and utilization of the natural resources. In this regard, there is no difference between a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Whichever nation works hard and exploits these natural resources within the remit of the physical laws will see the fruits of its efforts. 3. But the nation which utilizes the natural resources within the domain of the permanent values will live in harmony both within and with the rest of the world. Contrary to this, if a nation goes against the permanent values, despite having material prosperity, it will live a life of hell, and as a consequence of this other nations also will not have peace or contentment. Ultimately, the prosperity of such a nation will turn into ruin and destruction. The Quran has expounded these realities very comprehensively, and in this chapter these realities will be explained relatively briefly with examples. In this regard, it is important to keep this reality in mind, that the Quran presents two types of doctrines which oppose each other. According to one doctrine, the only purpose of life is to obtain all worldly materials and means. In this, there is no question of taking account of any permanent value. This is declared by the Quran as ajila or hayat al-dunya, that is, physical existence is the only life. The second doctrine of life is to obtain the material benefits of life while keeping in mind the divine values. This is declared by the Quran to be hayat-i-akhirat, or life in the hereafter. The term life in the hereafter does not mean that man should give up worldly benefits and only worry about the hereafter. This is the doctrine of monasticism which the Quran strongly opposes. The life in the hereafter means to utilize the natural resources within the remit of the divine values. Keep these two terms of the Quran in mind as we proceed. 9.1 Obtaining worldly benefits. In the Quran there are verses in which it is stated, "And he has subjected to you, as from him, all that is in the heavens and on earth. Behold, in that are signs indeed for those who reflect." 45:13. In these verses not only the mu'mineen but the whole of mankind is addressed, and the intention is that whichever nations use intellect, reason and effort will be able to bring these natural resources under control to their advantage. In Surah Bani Israel this reality is put forward succinctly. If any do wish for the transitory things of this life, we readily grant them such things as we will, to such person as we will. In the end have we provided hell for them. They will burn therein, disgraced and rejected. 17:18. This verse explains the principle that whichever nation wants immediate benefits in this world, we will give it to them according to our laws. But because they do not utilize these within the permanent values, therefore the result is not beneficial in the long run. Contrary to this, those who do wish for the things of the hereafter, and strive therefore with all due striving, and have iman, they are the ones whose striving is acceptable. 17:19. The above verse states that a nation which desires and works for worldly gains together with the benefits of the hereafter, i.e., they have iman in the permanent values of the Quran, their lives both in the physical sphere and in the hereafter are enhanced, and they are rewarded accordingly. As far as the worldly gains of this life are concerned, Allah gives opportunity for both categories of people to benefit from the material resources distributed throughout the earth. In this respect, Allah does not restrict or put barriers in front of one group and let the other group prosper. Allah does not do this. Of the bounties of your Rabb we bestow freely on all, these as well as those. The bounties of your Rabb are not closed to anyone. See how we have bestowed more on some than on others, as per laws. But verily the hereafter is more in rank and gradation and more in excellence. 17. 20-21. But the nation which keeps the permanent values in view, and utilizes material gains accordingly, their status is far higher and real ascendancy belongs to them. In Surah Al-Baqarah, there are men who say, Our Rabb, give us your bounties in this world, but they will have no portion in the hereafter. 200. Such people have only one aim, i.e., to gain everything in this life. They gain these benefits, but their future is dark. Contrary to this, there are other people who wish for the prosperity of this life and the next life. And there are men who say, Our Rabb, give us good in this world and good in the hereafter and protect us from the torment of the fire. To these will be allotted what they have earned. And Allah is quick in account. 201-202. In Surah Al-Imran it is made clear that the nation which wishes worldly benefits attains these, and the nation which along with this desires the benefits of the hereafter, they also attain this. If any do desire a reward in this life, we shall give it to him. And if any do desire a reward in the hereafter, we shall give it to him. And swiftly shall we reward those that serve us with gratitude. 145. Allah says that He recompenses the efforts of everyone. The former group only gets the immediate benefits of this life and has nothing for the hereafter. But for the latter group, their state is as noted in the following verse. And Allah gave them a reward in this world, and the excellent reward of the hereafter. For Allah loves, as per His laws, those who do good. 148. 9.2 Mu'mineen in this life. Bearing this view in mind, do not think that success in the hereafter means that the life of believers, Mu'mineen, in this world will be according to the doctrine of monasticism, i.e., of deprivation and poverty. The Quran has made it clear in many places that the consequence of Iman and righteous deeds is of power and rule with peace and prosperity in life. Whoever works righteousness, man or woman, and has Iman, verily, to him will we give a new life, a life that is good and pure, and we will bestow on such their reward according to the best of their actions. 1697. See also 39:10. In Surah Nur, this is an assured consequence of Iman and righteous deeds. Allah has promised to those among you who have Iman and work righteous deeds, that He will, of a surety, grant them in the land, inheritance of power, as He granted it to those before them. That He will establish in authority the deen, the one which He has chosen for them. And that He will change their state, after the fear in which they lived, to one of security and peace. 24:55. In Surah Anbiya this principle is reiterated that Allah had stated in the Zabur. Psalms. Also, before this we wrote in the Zabur. Psalms. After the message given to Moses. My servants, the righteous, shall inherit the earth. 21:105. In Surah Zumar there is a verse which narrates that those entering paradise say, they will say, Hamd be to Allah, who has truly fulfilled His promise to us, and has given us this land in heritage. We can dwell in the garden as we will. How excellent a reward for those who work righteousness. 39:74. At another place it is stated, Allah has decreed, it is I and my messengers who must prevail. For Allah is one full of strength, able to enforce His will. As per His laws. Opening parenthesis. 58:21. In the next verse this party of Mu'mineen is declared as being Allah's party. Hizbullah. They are the party of Allah. Truly it is the party of Allah that will achieve success. 58:22. In Surah Ibrahim the Quran explains in very clear terms that when our messengers came with the divine guidance, the opponents strongly rejected this invitation to the truth and threatened them with severe consequences. But Allah sent a revelation to the messengers not to worry, as ultimately this message will prevail. And the unbelievers said to their messengers, be sure we shall drive you out of our land, or you will return to our ways. But their Rabb inspired this message to them, verily we shall cause the wrongdoers to perish, and verily we shall cause you to abide in the land and succeed them. This for such as fear the time when they shall stand before me, for those who are apprehensive of the consequences of going against Allah's laws. 13:13-14. In another verse, the Quran provides an example from the history of Bani Israel. That we turned out Pharaoh and his cohorts from their orchards and lands and established the Bani Israel in their place. 26:59. Another example is that of the last messenger and the Mu'mineen, in that after a long struggle the opponents were eventually overcome. And he made you heirs of their lands, their houses, and the goods, and of a land which you had not frequented before. And Allah has power over all things. 33:27. 9.3 You continue with your efforts and I will with mine. In the initial period of conflict between truth and evil, the believers, Mu'mineen, were fewer in number and had limited material resources. But due to their strong conviction in the mission and the truth of the guidance, and in their own ultimate success, they announced to their opponents, say, O my people, do whatever you can, I will do my part. Soon will you know who it is whose end will be best in the hereafter. Certain it is that the wrongdoers will not prosper. 6:136. See also 11:121-39. 39. In another verse, they tell the opponents to wait for the results of your deeds to appear and we too are waiting. Say, wait you, we too are waiting. 6:158. See also 7:71-10, 20:11, 122-32, 30:44. 59. In Surah Hud, the messenger announced to the opponents that you continue following your program, and I will follow mine, and soon the results of both will be manifest. And O my people, do whatever you can, I will do my part. Soon will you know who it is on whom descends the penalty of ignominy, and who is a liar. And watch you, for I too am watching with you. 11:93. Regarding what has just been discussed, you will see who will soon be humiliated. Obviously, this humiliation will be visible in the present life and not in the hereafter, because humiliation after death cannot be seen in this life and so cannot be presented as evidence. These results are the ones that are going to become manifest during this life. In Surah Yunus this point is clarified by stating, do they then expect anything but what happened in the days of the men who passed away before them? Say, wait you then, for I too will wait with you. 10:102. This is obvious that the reference to the destruction of previous nations is in relation to this life and not after death. Therefore, the consequences of the programs of both the Mu'mineen and their opponents were going to show up in this life. And what is this result? Of the wrongdoers the last remnant was cut off. Hamd be to Allah, the Rabb of the worlds. 6:45. See also 7:72. Whatever happens, Allah's destruction only comes on those who are unjust and create inequities and are ultimately destroyed. Will any be destroyed except those who do wrong? 6:47. There is nothing in this world which happens by chance. Everything is according to the law of requital. That those who died might die after a clear sign had been given, and those who lived might live after a clear sign had been given. 8:42. This is the principle of the rise and fall of nations, and this is how one nation is replaced by another. 9:39-47. 38. 9.4 Forms of destruction of nations. In this world, the destruction of nations takes place through physical causes. In this regard, the Quran draws our attention to a great fundamental truth. As noted before, the Quran says that the laws which are given to mankind for guidance have two parts. One part is based on the natural laws which lead to physical effects. The second part is related to the permanent values which are related to the human life. Both these sets of laws are called Al-Kitab, the book, or divine laws. Whichever nation follows these divine laws wholly, their lives will be prosperous and blissful, whereas the nation which follows one part of the book only, their share will be of humiliation and ruin. Following one part of the book means 1. The nation which follows moral values in practice but ignores the physical laws, lives a life of monasticism, due to which it is not capable of standing in the ranks of the nations which are alive. 2. Contrary to this, the nation which only follows the physical laws and avoids the moral laws. Permanent values. Its society is subject to immoral and social imbalances. This is why this nation also becomes destroyed. The Quran has thrown light on these states in the following verse. Then is it only a part of the book that you believe in, and do you reject the rest? But what is the reward for those among you who behave like this but disgrace in this life? And on the day of judgment they shall be consigned to the most grievous penalty. For Allah is not unmindful of what you do. 2:85. In the nation which creates social and moral imbalances and inequities in society, corruption gradually becomes widespread, and as a consequence the administrative machinery becomes faulty and malfunctioning. This leads to ignoring those matters which provide the strength and capacity required by the society to face natural events and calamities, e.g., floods, earthquakes, fires, volcanoes, etc. Further details will be covered later. Another form of destruction which can face this nation is internal strife and civil war. In Surah An'am it is said, "Say, He has power to send calamities on you, from above and below, or to cover you with confusion in party strife, giving you a taste of mutual vengeance, each from the other." See how we explain the signs by various symbols, that they may understand. 6:65. In this state, another nation can take advantage of this internal situation and attack and occupy the nation, thereby becoming the instrument of its destruction. If the attacking nation does not follow the permanent values, then this conflict is between the two physical forces of the two nations. And with the defeat of one and the success of another, mankind does not gain any benefit, because in place of one tyrannical and oppressive nation, another similar nation arrives and replaces it. However, if the replacing nation follows the divine values of the Quran, then its success brings glad tidings for mankind, because its supremacy is based on restoring justice and balance. These are various ways in which the wrongdoing of nations becomes the means of the destruction in this world. The Quran has discussed many forms of destruction, and we will refer to these as examples. 9.5 Destruction of previous nations. The Quran has referred to the pattern of historical conduct of previous nations in order to focus attention on the gravest crime among many others committed by the people of these nations. This biggest crime was the cause of other evils and imbalances in these societies. At this time a messenger from Allah comes to this nation from among themselves, who warns them about the destructive consequences of their crimes and invites them to the right path. They ignore his invitation and continue following the same destructive path till some natural event destroys them. Apparently it looks as if there is no link between their crime and this natural event. This is why it is commonly viewed that Allah destroyed this nation through a supernatural way as a kind of miracle. In reality this is not correct. There is a strong correlation between the criminal path which this nation followed and its destruction through natural events. In these nations the social and moral inequities and imbalances were so rampant and common that they used to ignore taking any steps in time which were necessary to protect them from the effects of any natural disasters or events. The messengers of Allah not only communicated divine guidance but also warned them of the consequences of their social inequities which were leading to dissatisfaction spreading through their societies, and all the while they were ignoring taking preventative measures. Even today, in nations in which social inequities are common, they also do not take adequate measures to protect themselves from natural events. Contrary to this, those nations which take adequate measures against these natural events remain safer. This is the correlation between social evils and natural events in many nations. The individuals in these societies who recognized and understood what the Messenger of Allah was saying but did not have the strength to bring about any change in the society would migrate to a safer place and organize a new society. This is called migration in the Quran. 9.6 Nation of Noah. The Quran begins from the nation of Noah to illustrate this manner of destruction of a nation. It tells us that in this nation the social stratification was so severe that the rich and wealthy looked down upon the poor and the working class and considered it a humiliation to interact with them. Along with this, the society was geographically located in a low valley, where the water from the hills around the dwellings passed close by. Since the wealthy and powerful at the top were intoxicated with their own activities, no one thought about the well-being of all members of the society, and they ignored providing adequate defenses against any flooding occurring in the future. The messenger Noah was born among them and drew their attention to all these evils and weaknesses in the society. But the rich and powerful strata opposed him strongly, ignoring his warnings. He also warned them about the risk of flooding but was ignored. Noah, under the direction provided through revelation, started constructing a boat for a potential flood in the near future. The people ridiculed him for this. Then a time came when there was a heavy rainfall which flooded the valley and destroyed everyone except those who took refuge in the boat with Noah. For further details see 7, 59, 11, 25, 11, 38, 25, 37, 71. 1. 9.7 Nation of Ad. About the nation of Ad, the Quran has stated that these people were powerful, prosperous, wealthy, and had strong political influence in their time. They had plenty for their sustenance. Their prosperity was displayed through their mansions, castles, and economic power. However, they were extremely cruel towards weak and poor human beings, and the Quran uses the following expression to illustrate this crime. And when you exert your strong hand, do you do it like men of absolute power? 26. 130. It is apparent that excessive wealth and power and exceeding the limits in tyranny and cruelty produce evils in a society which knows no bounds. The messenger had tried his utmost that the people should leave the wrong path and follow the divine laws, but they ignored all his warnings. The evil kept spreading and they kept disregarding the measures to be taken against natural events. One time a windstorm blew through the area which lasted for a week and destroyed this nation. The wealth and power had intoxicated them to such an extent that they became blind and deaf and their intellect and reason was of no use to them. The Quran, after referring to their destruction, then addresses the opponents of the last messenger. And we had firmly established them in a prosperity and power which we have not given to you, and we had endowed them with faculties of hearing, sight, heart and intellect. But of no profit to them were their faculties of hearing, sight, and heart and intellect when they went on rejecting the signs of Allah, and they were completely encircled by that which they used to mock at. 42:26. 9.8 Nation of Samud. After the nation of Ad, the nation of Samud comes before us. At that time most of the economy was based on animal husbandry. These animals used to graze in pastures and drink from springs. But the rich and powerful of the nation had assumed control of these pastures and sources of drinking water. This resulted in depriving the animals belonging to the poor and weak of fodder and water. At this time, the messenger Saleh drew the attention of the rich to this issue and told them, "And remember how he made you inheritors after the Ad people and gave you habitations in the land. You build for yourselves palaces and castles in open plains, and carve out homes in the mountains. So bring to remembrance the benefits you have received from Allah, and refrain from evil and mischief on the earth." 7:74. Allah's land should be open for the use of Allah's creation. And do not create those inequities, one of the consequences of which is that the rich people without doing any work are becoming richer. And the accumulation of wealth in their hands has intoxicated them to such an extent that they are not taking preventative measures. The poor and needy are so lost in their own difficulties and worries that they also cannot pay any attention. Earthquakes are common in this area, and if you do not take adequate measures you will be destroyed. They completely ignored him, and finally a big earthquake overtook the dwellings and they were destroyed. The messenger Saleh and his companions, just like Hud, left the area before the earthquake. Also see 7:73:11, 64:26, 156:41. 17. 9.9 Nation of Lut. This nation was located near the Dead Sea, which was close to a volcano. Robbery and looting was common, and they indulged in sexual perversions which were widespread. 29. Homosexuality was accepted in the society. It is obvious that such a savage and ignorant nation is not going to think of any preventative measures. The messenger Lut tried very hard to bring them to the straight path, but they did not listen to any of his warnings and continued to increase in their criminal and immoral activities. They ignored all the warnings and finally were destroyed by the volcanic eruption. The messenger and his companions migrated to another safe place before the disaster. For further details see 11:76:51. 37:54. 38. 9.10 Nation of Shoaib. This nation lived in Madian and had well-developed businesses. However, these businesses were based on the capitalist system. The greatest exertions were to extract maximum advantage from others and in return give the minimum with which they could get away with. The messenger Shoaib made efforts to prevent them from practicing these wrong economic practices and used to say to them, "And O my people, give just measure and weight, nor withhold from the people the things that are the due. Commit not evil in the land with intent to do mischief." 11:85. The capitalist class of people at the top ridiculed him and told him, "You keep your preaching to your religious worship practices and don't interfere in our business. This is our business and we will run it as we please. How has all the pain of the poor and deprived become your responsibility? We know what sort of treatment they deserve and how much we should pay them. Talk such as yours is spoiling them." 1187. A system based on such exploitation ultimately leads to destruction, which finally came to this nation as well. 1184-26. 189. 9.11 Nation of Saba. These people lived in Yemen in a mountainous region, and initially their economy was based on agriculture. In order to support their agriculture, they constructed a dam to irrigate their fertile lands, and this brought prosperity to the people. After a while, the people developed a taste for business, and like every capitalist, their lust for money increased day by day. In this race to accumulate wealth, they became so busy that the administration and management of the national affairs was neglected. One year, cracks began to develop in the dam to which they paid no heed, and as a consequence the dam burst, and the flood destroyed their villages and settlements. The Quran states, "But they turned away from the guidance, and we sent against them the flood from the dams, and we converted their two garden rows into gardens producing bitter fruit, and tamarisks, and some few stunted lot trees. That was the requital we gave them because they ungratefully rejected Iman. And never do we give such requital except to such as are ungrateful rejectors. Between them and the cities on which we had poured our blessings, we had placed cities in prominent positions, and between them we had appointed stages of journey in due proportion. Travel therein, secure, by night and by day. But they said, Our Rabb placed longer distances between our journey stages. But they wronged themselves. At length we made 'em as a tale, and we dispersed 'em all in scattered fragments. Verily in this are signs for every self that is patiently constant and grateful. 34. 16-19. These are examples of the destruction which comes to nations due to their mismanagement and poor administration, and thus not taking adequate preventive measures against natural events, which then result in destroying these nations. 9.12 Second form of destruction. The second form of destruction is when a nation becomes weak internally and another more powerful nation seizes it, invades and occupies its land, and colonizes its inhabitants. To illustrate this, the Quran refers to Bani Israel as a lesson for us. First of all, the Quran refers to the way Bani Israel lived as a nation under the subjugation of the pharaohs of Egypt. The Quran calls this living under subjugation as a life of humiliation and slavery, which is a form of azab as previously mentioned. When Moses went to confront Pharaoh, he began to remind Moses of his early life, and the kindness and blessings he had enjoyed during the time he was brought up in Pharaoh's household. On hearing this, Moses replied, "And this is the favor with which you are reminding me, while the fact is, you have enslaved Bani Israel." 26:22. Contrary to this, Allah was going to bestow a favor on this nation, which was going to be freed from the bondage of Pharaoh, and established on earth. And we wished to be gracious to those who were being depressed in the land, to make them leaders in Iman, and make them heirs, to establish a firm place for them in the land, and to show Pharaoh, Haman, and their hosts, at their hands, the very things against which they were taking precautions. 28. 5-6. Under the leadership of the messengers Moses and Aaron, after many years of struggle, this nation became free from the clutches of Pharaoh. Then they were elevated in position and established in their own state, which was a bright period in history. This was a consequence of their own righteous deeds and labors. When they abandoned this path, they suffered a destruction unparalleled in the history of the time at the hands of the king of Babylon. This is referred to in the Quran. When the first of the warnings came to pass, we sent against you our servants given to terrible warfare. They entered the very inmost parts of your homes. And it was a warning fulfilled. 17:5. The nation of Bani Israel learned a lesson from this destruction and repented for the previous conduct and made efforts to reform themselves. Because their destructive deeds were not heavily tilted, there was still potential to recover. The Persian king assisted them in getting rid of their invader, the king of Babylon, and helped to re-establish them in Jerusalem. After some time, however, they again started rebelling against the permanent values and divine guidance, and at this stage the time came for their final destruction. The Quran declares, "If you did well, you did well for yourselves. If you did evil, you did it against yourselves. So when the second of the warnings came to pass, we permitted your enemies to disfigure your faces, and to enter your temple as they had entered it before, and to visit with destruction all that fell into their power." 17:7. The destruction of Bani Israel commenced at the hands of the Romans. The Quran discusses in detail the crimes which led to their destruction, in order to serve as an example for others. After this, their state was such that shame is pitched over them like a tent, wherever they are found. 3:112. From the history of these previous nations, there are many lessons to be learned for those who ponder and remain on the guard against the consequences of flouting the divine laws. Verily, in this is an instructive warning for whosoever fears the consequences of going against the divine laws. 79:26. This is the second model of the destruction of nations, in which a more powerful nation destroys a weaker nation. 9.13. Third form of destruction. In the third type, a nation which is unjust and tyrannical is opposed by a nation which is righteous and follows the permanent values of the Quran. This nation establishes in this world a system based on justice and balance, and this will be called the fight between battle, evil, and haq, truth. It is possible that during this struggle the nation standing up for truth may have a temporary setback. But if it perseveres and remains steadfast, then it can overpower opponents many times its strength. 8:65. Remember, the nation fighting for truth will have to utilize its own full power. 8:60. And its success will be brought about by its own exertions. This is called victory from Allah, or unseen help. Remaining within the remit of the permanent values during these endeavors will compensate for any deficiencies of material resources. This belief and conviction in the continuity of life, i.e., the belief that life does not end with death and that life after death will be far more prosperous, fulfilling and beautiful, will remove the fear of death. And it is obvious that if an individual is not fearful of death, then who can defeat him? This fight is in reality the fight between the balancing of constructive and destructive deeds, because the nation standing for truth and justice has more constructive deeds in its balance compared to the opposing nation, therefore the former achieves success. In Surah Araf this is noted comprehensively. How many towns have we destroyed for their crimes? Our punishment took them on a sudden by night, or while they slept for their afternoon rest. When, thus, our punishment took them, no cry did they utter but this: Indeed we did wrong. Then shall we question those to whom our message was sent and those by whom we sent it. And verily, we shall recount their whole story with knowledge, for we were never absent. 7:4-7. And further clarifies it. The balance that day will be true. Truth will come out. Those whose scale of good will be heavy will prosper. Those whose scale will be light will be their self in perdition, for that they wrongfully treated our signs. 7. 8-9. See also 21, 45-47. In relation to the destruction of a criminal nation, the Quran has made reference to Moses against Pharaoh and in even more detail the struggle of the last messenger against his opponents, the people of Quraysh. A large section of the Quran is devoted to this struggle, which is very illuminating and instructive. The repeated defeats of the opponents, and the ultimate end of their power is declared to be a natural consequence of adopting an immoral path in life and according to the law of requital. This is Allah's punishment, and this point has been repeatedly clarified as to why such punishment is visited upon the nations when they did this or that act. 8. 34-37. In this connection the Quran declares, "We send the messengers only to give good news and to warn. So those who have Iman and mend their lives, upon him shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. But those who reject our signs, them shall punishment touch, for that they ceased not from transgressing." 6. 48-49. In this conflict, the evil nation is not eliminated in one go, instead they will suffer some loss which serves as a warning and as an opportunity for them to mend their ways and accept the righteous path. But as noted before, these people try to take advantage of this respite to develop further in the intensity of their opposition, and so they gradually move of their own accord closer to their own destruction. This was the pattern of the struggle between the last messenger and his opponents. E.g. c. 9, 101-102, 9, 126, 11, 8-23, 75-77, 25, 41-42, 26, 201-203. Before the arrival of the last messenger, none of the nations residing around the Arabian Peninsula had their societies organized on the basis of the divine laws, therefore there was no chance of any conflict of ideology amongst them. The systems were purely based on worldly politics, according to which the Arabs had an arrangement in place that neighboring nations will not harm them. With the advent of Islam, the struggle became now of ideologies. It was necessary now that people were informed as to which was the rightly guided path, and which was not. Then people needed to be provided with time and opportunity in order to leave the wrong path and adopt the right path. This time was provided for a long while. The life of the Mu'mineen in Makkah was devoted to delivering this message to people. The Maccan period belonged to this spreading of the message, and organizing training for those who accepted the divine guidance. When, despite this, the opponents of the ideology did not mend their ways and instead resorted to violence which increased with time, then the process of the destruction commenced. The Battle of Badr, to the next stage of victory in Makkah, was part of this program of establishing the system. This is the purpose of these verses, which declare that no community is destroyed until they have been adequately warned through a messenger, i.e., the third form of destruction is not imposed on them. Nor would we visit with our wrath, based on the law of requital, until we had sent a messenger to give warning. Opening parenthesis. 17, 15. At another place it is said, "The messengers were sent thus, for your sustainer would not destroy for their wrongdoing men's habitations whilst their occupants were unwarned." 6. 131. See also 26, 208. As per this principle, the messenger is addressed. And if we had inflicted on them a penalty before this, they would have said, "Our sustainer, if only you had sent us a messenger, we should certainly have followed your signs before we were humbled and put to shame." Say, each one of us is waiting. Wait you, therefore, and soon shall you know who it is that is on the straight and even path, and who it is that has received guidance. 20. 134-135. In this way the messenger explains both paths and their consequences to the people. It is not something difficult to understand, but since by following the righteous path the interests of the rich and powerful cliques of a nation are attacked, they're living off the hard work of weaker human beings, therefore they are the ones who oppose this message. They have such confidence in their wealth and the number of their cronies at the top, that they feel they can ignore the warnings of this apparently weak group. 34 to 35. They consider that this is merely a clash between two physical powers, and it never enters their heads that they could be defeated by this weaker group. Intoxicated by their wealth and power and bent upon protecting their vested interests. They do not even understand, or we can say they do not wish to understand, that in this conflict the criteria for defeat and victory has changed. Now the state is, it is not your wealth nor your sons that will bring you nearer to us in degree, but only those who have Iman and work righteousness. These are the ones for whom there is a multiplied reward for the deeds, while secure they reside in the dwellings on high. Those who strive against our signs, to frustrate them, will be given over into punishment. 37 to 38. Victory and success is not based on accumulated wealth and numbers. Instead it is based on true conviction and acceptance of the divine laws, and whosoever according to this produces the ability within himself to live in life. Whoever does this will receive multiplied successes. Contrary to this, the people who oppose the divine laws and try to make them ineffective, their efforts will be wasted and they will face destruction. Wherever in the Quran life and death are mentioned in relation to nations, it means that the decision is based on the law of requital. 44.8. This is the third form of the destruction of nations. For example, after defeat in the Battle of Badr, it is stated, this is because they contended against Allah and His Messenger. If any contend against Allah and His Messenger, Allah is strict in punishment. Thus, will it be said, taste you then of the punishment. For those who resist Allah, is the penalty of the fire. 13 to 14. The common belief regarding hell is that it will happen in the next life, but according to the Quran, paradise and hell start in this world. Whichever society organizes itself on the basis of the permanent values, its life is paradise, peace and tranquility. Those who oppose such a system, their life is hell. This is the earthly hell into which incompetent leaders push their nations. 14:28 to 29. In Surah Tawbah the Mu'mineen are told, fight them, and Allah will punish them by your hands, cover them with shame, help you over them. 9:14. And also, He punished the unbelievers. Thus does He reward those without Iman. 9:26. Whichever people oppose the system based on truth, their end is this, ignominy and defeat. At the time of the pact called Hudaybiyah, the Mu'mineen were prevented from fighting against the Quraysh because there were still some Muslims living in Makkah, and in the event of a fight they would have suffered. Had there not been Mu'mineen, believing men, and Mu'minat, believing women, whom you did not know that you were trampling down and on whose account a crime would have accrued to you without knowledge. Allah would have allowed you to force your way, but He held back your hands. 48:25. See also 59:15. From this it is made clear that the results of human deeds are not only made manifest in the hereafter but show up in this life as well. It is not a correct concept that the jurisdiction of Allah's law of requital only works in the next life and that this life is outside the jurisdiction of Allah. The divine laws are equally applicable in this life as well as the next. Though for the manifestation of the consequences of deeds there are established rules, according to which there are deeds whose results will manifest in this life. The rise and Fall of nations, for example, comes into this category. 9.14 feet Ajal of nations. Outcome. As noted previously, regarding the life and death of nations, the Quran has based this on the scaling of the constructive and destructive deeds. If the constructive deeds are greater than the destructive deeds, the nation survives and prospers. However, if the evil deeds exceed the good deeds, then destruction follows. Sometimes this destruction or fall is temporary, and a period of respite is allowed so that the nation can learn a lesson and do more constructive deeds to tilt the balance in its favor. But when this nation has no ability left to tilt the balance in its favor, it is destroyed. This time of respite is called the nation's ajal. This means that both the time of respite and the onset of the time of destruction are termed ajal. The nation can neither be destroyed before this, nor can it survive after this. The Quran states, "To every people is a term appointed, ajal. When their term is reached, not an hour can they cause delay, nor an hour can they advance it in anticipation." 10:49. See also 7:34. It does not mean that it has been decided in advance as to how long a nation will live before getting destroyed. Every nation defines its own ajal, i.e., its own term of respite, through its conduct, and there is a law for this as the Quran defines. For each period, ajal is a book, law. 13:38. In the next verse it is stated, Allah does blot out or confirm as per His law. With Him is the source of all laws. Mother of the book. Opening parenthesis. 13:39. According to this law, everything in the universe, including nations, go through changes. The nation which follows this law becomes established and makes progress. The nation which goes against it is eliminated. This law is not man-made and its source is the will of Allah. In Surah Al-Hijr it is called the Kitab-e-Malum, known book. Never did we destroy a population that had not a term decreed and assigned. 15:4. This means that it is not such a law which cannot be understood. Historians and sociologists, through the study of the philosophy of history, can acquire knowledge of this law. This law can inform us as to which nation will progress and which will lag behind. 15:24. It is a result of this law of respite, ajal, that a nation is not destroyed at the commission of its first crime, but is provided opportunity with which to rectify the damage done as a consequence of their wrong. But when the balance tilts towards the destructive deeds, then the decision is not delayed for a single moment. 16:61-23:43. As noted before, the life of nations is not counted in days, weeks, or a few years, but in centuries. Regarding this period of scaling, the Quran calls it Ayuam Allah, Allah's days. Yet they ask you to hasten on the punishment. But Allah will not fail in His promise. Verily, a day in the sight of your Rabb is like 1,000 years of your reckoning. 22:47. When people see that a nation has adopted the path of tyranny and oppression for itself, despite which it continues to prosper, they question that if Allah's law of requital is true, then why is this nation not destroyed? The Quran states, "Do they then ask for our penalty to be hastened on?" 26:204. But this is only due to the given period of respite, after which, when its balance is tilted more heavily towards its destructive deeds, it will profit them not that they enjoyed this life. 26:207. Then their physical power and material resources will not be able to save them. 26:208-209. In Surah Ankabut, this reality is further explained. They ask you to hasten on the punishment. For them, had it not been for a term of respite appointed, the punishment would certainly have come to them. and it will certainly reach them of a sudden, while they perceive not. They ask you to hasten on the punishment. But, of a surety, hell will encompass those who deny our signs. On the day that the punishment shall cover them from above and from below, and a voice shall say, taste you the fruits of your deeds. 29, 53-55. The hell resulting from the consequences of their crimes is encompassing the evildoers. It is just they cannot see it for the present, but this hell keeps them in its sight all the time. And hellfire shall be placed in full view for all to see. 79, 36. This hell that they could not see, will then become physically visible for all to see. 9.15 As Sarat time of revolution. When the stage for such a time of revolution comes to a nation, i.e., its ajal ends and destruction appears in some form or other, the Quran calls this as Sarat, i.e., the time for revolution. We generally consider as Sarat as the day of judgment, and its translation is commonly this. But in the Quran this term is used for the time when the consequences of deeds are made manifest, whether in this world or in the hereafter. Since, at present, we are only dealing with those consequences of deeds which manifest in the physical life, we will therefore consider this aspect of as Sarat. In Surah Jathiyah the Quran states, to Allah belongs the dominion of the heavens and the earth, and the day that the hour of judgment is established, that day will the dealers in falsehood perish. And you will see every sect bowing the knee. Every nation will be called to its record. This day you will be recompensed for all that you did. 45, 27-28. Later the term as Sarat is used. 45, 32. And the Quran then states, then will appear to them the evil fruits of what they did, and they will be completely encircled by that which they used to mock at. 45, 33. When the messenger Moses was initially directed by Allah to go to Pharaoh and say that he had transgressed all bounds, the thought came to Moses as to what would be the outcome of this confrontation with Pharaoh. He received the following reply from Allah. Verily the hour, as Sarat, is coming, my design is to keep it hidden, for every self to receive its reward by the measure of its endeavor. 20, 15. A similar explanation was given to the last messenger at the end of the Maccan period, when it was said, and the hour, as Sarat, is surely coming, when this will be manifested. So dissociate yourself from these people gracefully and peacefully. 15, 85. After this dissociate yourself calmly from them, because as Sarat, the revolution, is about to come. In this connection, when after their initial defeats the opponents plotted and gathered together all their tribal forces against the messenger in order to try and defeat the Muslims, the Quran states, people ask you concerning the hour, as Sarat, say, the knowledge thereof is with Allah alone, and what will make you understand? Perchance the hour is nigh. 33, 63. In Surah Shura it is stated, it is Allah who has sent down the book in truth, and the balance, by which to weigh conduct. And what will make you realize that perhaps the hour is close at hand? Only those wish to hasten it who believe not in it. Those who have Iman hold it in awe, and know that it is the truth. Behold, verily those that dispute concerning the hour are far astray. 42, 17-18. Those who have Iman in Allah's law of requital know that this is a reality which will take place. But they also know that in the struggle of revolution, there are very painful struggles and fights. So they also remain apprehensive. At another place it is noted that if they were to wait they would not know how long to wait, but when it does come it will come unexpectedly and the opponents will be caught by surprise. 6, 31. A verse in Surah Yusuf appears to point to the process which is applicable in the fall of nations. First, short shocks appear so that they may learn a lesson. If they do not mend their ways, then finally as Sa'at, a big revolution, reaches them which turns over the last page of the story of their lives. Do they then feel secure from the coming against them of the covering veil of the wrath of Allah, or of the coming against them of the final hour all of a sudden while they perceive not? 12. 107. 9.16 feet 0 filard travel through the world. This is the end of such nations. Do they not travel through the earth and see what was the end of those before them? They were more numerous than these and superior in strength and in the traces they have left in the land, yet all that they accomplished was of no profit to them. For when their messengers came to them with clear signs, they exulted in such knowledge as they had. But that very wrath, at which they were wont to scoff, hemmed them in. 40. 82-83. After this, the Quran declares that these are not random events. Such has been Allah's way of dealing with people for all times, and even thus did the rejectors of Allah perish. 40. 85. This is Allah's immutable law which has been working from the beginning. In another verse it is stated, do they not travel through the land, so that their hearts and minds may thus learn wisdom, and their ears may thus learn to hear? Truly it is not their eyes that are blind, but their hearts which are in their breasts. 22. 46. They should perceive the end of those before them and understand it well, that this is not related to any particular time or place in the world. At whatever time period, people who deny the permanent values, their end will be the same. 47. 10. Through these verses, this reality becomes as clear as a mirror that the consequences of a nation's deeds show up in this life. In this connection there are many more verses, but we do not think we need mention them here. So we should proceed forward.